I'm back, and as you can see, I finished assembling the BMF3 computer with the Ryzen 3900X and the MSI X570 Godlike motherboard, and I think I forgot to record a session, a video when the whole thing was done, so we can consider that video. And in summary, I've been using the machine for the last several weeks, doing media production and other things for my class, preparation of my class at University of Michigan, my urban entrepreneurship class. And overall, the machine has done what I needed to do, and it's a lot faster than BMF2, which I would have been very disappointed if it hadn't been. However, I will say that the MSI X570 Godlike motherboard has been anything but, and the MSI customer support experience has been anything but godlike. And so I just want to recap what has happened. So I finished building the system and set it up, got it running, no problem. Booted up first time, great. And subsequent to that, I put the computer to sleep, went away to do some things, came back later, and I noticed that the machine was running hot. Now, I had heard tales about the Ryzen chips running hotter, AMD chips running hotter than the Intel counterparts, and with the higher density, with the smaller trace size of the Ryzen chips. So I just started investigating. I was uncomfortable with how hot this thing was running. It was running in the high 50s, at idle, and 60, 70 when I'm doing work, 60, 70 C. And then if I try to run the Cinebench test, it would zoom up to the limit, 95 degrees, unacceptable, right? And so I tried different things. I tried resetting the CPU. I tried using a CPU pad instead of the CPU paste. And a funny thing would happen. Whatever I try, if I set the machine back up, it would seem to be doing fine. Temperatures back down in the 40s. Cinebench running. I'd go away, put the computer to sleep, go away, come back, and thing is heating up again. It's doing the same old performance. And it really just boggled my mind. I'm like, is the fan running? Is there something wrong? So I look in there, the fan is running. Well, to make a long story short, what it turned out was that the motherboard, the system was exhibiting this behavior where the CPU fan would go to this low level, its lowest level, about 340 something RPM, and just stay there. No matter what the load on the processor, just stay there. And so naturally, as the load got heavier, the CPU would get hotter and hotter and overheat. So that was obviously unacceptable. Now, one of the things that I tried in the process of getting this whole thing squared away was to get a better cooler than the stock cooler, the stock Wraith Prism cooler that came with the CPU. So I got this Noctua, I think it's NHD15. It's very popular. It's a huge cooler with 2 fans. Put that on, and that definitely cooled things down. And again, my temperatures were down in the 30s on idle. But then if I went away and come back, do a reset, do an S3 on the system, come back, it's running hot. I look at it again, and the fan is still running at its lowest level, lowest speed. And I'm like, wow. So it wasn't the cooler. It wasn't the Wraith Prism cooler. That was the fan is getting a signal from the CPU and through the motherboard, and it's just running, staying at this lowest level. So obviously I go on Google and I start looking around, and I saw a few posts from people who had similar issues, and they said, well, what we did was we went back to BIOS version 1.7. I think when I got the machine it was at 1.8. It later came out with 1.9. So I'm hopeful. Let me reflash this thing back to 1.7. And sure enough, when I did that, I stopped seeing this behavior. Well, I didn't see right away this behavior where when you S3 the system, it comes back and it's, the fan's not responding anymore. So I thought, okay, well maybe that fixes the thing. I basically what I had done was reflash the BIOS, clear the CMOS, bring the thing back up. So it looked okay. But then after a while, I might leave the system on most of the day. I come back and boom, there it is, lowest level. It didn't happen nearly as much, and it didn't happen as consistently as it did under 1.8 and 1.9, but it still happened. And so that's just disturbing. When you pay close to $700 for a motherboard, you don't expect this kind of behavior. And so I assumed it was motherboard related because I saw those posts online. And I also looked and did searches about Windows 10 to see if there was any Windows 10 related problem that might be caused. I saw nothing. Only thing I saw was relative to the MSI X570 motherboard, either the Godlike or the Ace. And so I figured, okay, that must be it. And I'm calling MSI customer support to see what's going on. And one of the things I noticed that you call MSI customer support, you get, I hate to say it, people sound like kids. Maybe they are kids, and they don't sound all that concerned. There's no case number or anything like that. They just answer the phone. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, we haven't seen anything like that. And so I didn't get very far with them. So after a while, I said, we go back and forth. They say they can't find it. They can't even try to repeat the problem because of COVID-19 considerations. They're not, in their lab, or they don't have access to the testing stuff. So I said, it looks like a firmware problem to me, maybe a BIOS problem, but, I don't have time to be, I got work to do, so I want this thing resolved. If you think it's a motherboard problem, send me another motherboard and I'll try it out. And so what they said was, no, we can't do that. Our policy is you send us the motherboard and we'll check it out, and if we need to repair it, we'll repair it or send you a different one. But it's going to take like 15 to 25 days, and we're not going to send you a motherboard in advance. Now, I had never seen anything like this before. Again, this motherboard is one of the most expensive freaking motherboards out there. It's twice expensive as what's regarded as high-end. And in fact, now I'm feeling kind of stupid for having bought the thing in the first place. But they said, you got to send this thing in before we will, we'll take a look at it and send you something back after we get yours in. It's going to take a few weeks for us to check this out. Totally unacceptable. And so I went back and forth on email with one of the people at MSI, and to their credit, they did actually get in touch with their headquarters in Taiwan. They were trying to recreate the problem. They claim they cannot recreate the problem. And so, this person seemed more reasonable and seemed more helpful. So I said, and I was very nice. I wasn't getting angry. I wasn't acting like, I would normally act. So I said to the guy, look, just send me another motherboard. If you can't recreate it, send me another motherboard. I'll send you this back. And if you're worried about the cost of this thing, or that I'm scamming you or something, I'll give you my credit card, and that will secure, the cost of this motherboard, and you'll get it back. Nope, we can't do that. So at that point, I said, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I am going to take this motherboard out, this Godlike motherboard. I'm taking it out of this system. I'm going to send it back to you so you can take a look at it. In the meantime, at the same time I take it out, or before I take it out, I'm buying a motherboard from a different manufacturer, right? I've always used Asus motherboards in the past. I don't know why I didn't this time, but I like to try different things. So I said, I'm going to get a motherboard from a different manufacturer, install it in my system. I'm going to send yours back to you. And when you send me the replacement that supposedly works, I'm going to sell it, right? And I am going to let everybody that I know that your customer service stinks. Your customer service stinks. And the Godlike motherboard is not worth the price, particularly if you don't need some attachment that does 10 gig Ethernet, and you don't need an attachment that gives you another few PCIe slots. I didn't need any of that stuff in the first place, but I was happy to keep it, future-proof, this kind of, I didn't mind overspending for this freaking board if I'm thinking that if I'm getting the best and I'm getting the best service. Okay, I spent too much, but I don't feel too bad about it. But when you send me a board that has a problem and you can't be bothered to try to accommodate me by allowing me to keep doing my work while you look at this board, I have no use for you. I will never buy an MSI motherboard again, Godlike or otherwise. So what I did, let me move over here. I went out to Micro Center and I bought an Asus motherboard, the ROG Crosshair 8 Hero Wi-Fi board. Does everything the Godlike MSI board does, plus some things. It doesn't have, again, the bells and whistles with the added 10 gig Ethernet that I can't do in my house anyway. It doesn't have the additional PCIe slots, but I only need one, for my M.2. What I'm not saying. It has multiple M.2 slots. I only need one. It has two. It has three PCIe 4.0 slots, of which I will be using one for my GPU, which is also Asus. And so right now, I'm gonna put this ROG Crosshair 8 Hero Wi-Fi in this system. I'm gonna do some surgery. I'm taking the I'm taking the MSI board out. I will be shipping it back to MSI on the RMA number that they gave me, and I'll continue working. And as I said before, when I get that board back, I am going to sell it. And I'm sure there's a few people out there who want the top of the line MSI X570 motherboard, and they can have it, and hopefully they will have fixed whatever the issue was before they send the thing back, or maybe hopefully they'll just replace it. But given the way these guys are, given the level of service that I've had, I halfway expect them to take a look at the board and say they can't reproduce the problem and just send me the same board back. That's kind of what I halfway expect. Fortunately, I'm not living hand to mouth. I have some resources. So they are going to hear from me. MSI is going to hear from me. Everybody I can reach and talk to, and this is part of that. I'm going to tell them their service absolutely sucks. It's not worthy of a, $600-700 motherboard. And I understand that I'm a residential, a single user. I'm not buying 100 of these things. Maybe they treat their corporate customers, OEM builders and so forth, maybe they treat them better. I don't know. But I know that I will never be buying a board from MSI again. And if there's an MSI product that I have opportunity to buy, even if it's not a motherboard, I'm going to look at the alternatives before I look at MSI. And it's going to end up costing them a lot more. Just from my business, it's going to end up costing them a lot more than the cost of this motherboard. And I'm going to reach more than a few people who will also have to think twice before they deal with an MSI product again. Don't take my word for it. If you have an MSI product, call up customer service just to see what the response is. You're not going to get a case number. They don't give you case numbers, right? And the other thing that was really aggravating was that they wouldn't do anything until I gave them the serial number off of the board. Now this board is built, it's inside the built-up system, right? There is no way. I thought maybe you could go into Windows and something, go into BIOS and see the serial number of the board. No. So there is a sticker on the 24-pin socket that contains the serial number, and I wasn't about to disassemble the whole system in order to see the serial number. So what I did was I ended up having to get a mirror and to get my camera in there and take a picture of what was on the mirror, and finally I was able to pull this serial number out. But they required that before they would give me any service. And so just horrible, horrible, horrible. I won't be dealing with them again. So this is BMF3 with this huge Noctua cooler, and the whole thing, the system works great except for that heating issue. And frankly, with the Noctua cooler in there, even with the fan running at the lowest level with that Noctua cooler, it still it improves the situation a lot, so I don't overheat in my normal day-to-day activities. But I want this thing to be downright cold, and I want the fan, the CPU fan, to work the way it's supposed to work. Is that too much to ask? So as I say, I didn't do a video when the system was completed. Maybe that was an omen. Maybe having a board with the name Godlike, it's kind of blasphemy. Maybe that's an omen. Maybe they should think of renaming that board or not using that name in the future. I don't like that, quite frankly, But at any rate, it's done. It's going back. I'm going to put the crosshair in. I may do another video that just says, hey, everything is great, and I recommend ASUS Crosshair 8 Hero Wi-Fi. But at any rate, there you have it. And hope you guys are having a good time. I'll see you later.